Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. And of course, we are streaming on the Facebook page of our content partner, Activist Post. That's facebook.com/Activist Post. Well, it is 10 a.m. Pacific time on Monday, and we are coming to you live from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Got a great show planned for you today. Crypto heavy, very crypto heavy. So for the crypto savages out there, you guys are going to love this. For people who are just learning about this show or who are just starting to dive into cryptocurrency, when I do the show, I really try to talk about the fundamentals of what's going on so that people can start to get involved in this culture. This is not going to be a technically heavy show, but there were some very interesting things that happened in the world of cryptocurrency this week that are, quite honestly, that are historical, that are worth talking about. We're going to be talking about that. There was actually a big crypto heist that affected some companies this week. Swarm City was one of those. Swarm City is a company that we talk about quite a bit. Some confusing stuff to clear the air. I actually am glad that we're able to get Matthew Carano, who's the head of the communications hive for Swarm City. He's going to be on here in the first hour just for a little while to really lay out what happened so people can get a better understanding. In the second hour, very excited about our guest today. Our guest is an absolute icon of libertarianism, probably the most prolific writer in this scene and in this movement, and one of the most insightful people and articulate people that I've ever met. Jeffrey Tucker, the content director for the Foundation for Economic Education, is on the show this week. That's going to be in the second hour. Very excited for that. So we may as well get straight away to this. And to help us do all of that, as always, my good friend, co-host, and producer, Mr. Christian Reyes. Christian, good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
How you doing?
Great.
So I have something for you.
Really?
Yes, I do.
Oh, shit.
I do. Bam, the new book.
Shit. Awesome.
There are 5 proof copies. That was the most I could get, was 5 proofs. So this is functionally still a manuscript.
Dude.
It is approved. The book is ready to go. The first printing is being done right now, and the first edition, the portions that I'm going to have are being sent to me. This one, however, is for you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I want to grab it. There you go. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, you can pop through and read the dedication because you may very well have a mention yourself in that book. But
thank you.
I want to tell you thank you very much for this journey.
It's been an honor.
I remember sitting right over there talking one afternoon and telling you, I think I really need to write a book about self-ownership. Yeah. So you've been from the very, very kernel and moment of this thing. Not only have you been there, you've helped. This is not an easy thing that we've done, that I think we've pulled off and that continues to grow. So I want to say thank you, man. It means the world. Your friendship means the world. Your help with this means the world. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way. I know that we are changing hearts and minds. So what I do want to say though is I have made a decision that I'm not going to release the book yet.
Okay.
The paperback is ready. It's ready to go for sale on Amazon, all of that. Kindle and iTunes versions are ready. They're ready to go up. I can make them live at any time. Waiting on the audio. We're going to have simultaneously the audio book. John Loth is reading it.
Nice.
So far, I've gotten maybe 10 chapters from him. Amazing. So there's 31 essays in there. That's basically what makes up the book. It's really great. That's going to be released so people can get that on Audible at the same time. But because I'm releasing them all together, because the audio is not quite yet done, what I am going to do, and I'm not really super actively publicizing this. I'm going to actively publicize putting the book out. But what I am going to do is, for people who are watching the show, we don't have like a Patreon or anything like that. We don't do that. We don't ask people for money. That's not how we're agorists. We don't do that, right? So it's like, if we have something, buy it, right? If people want to support the show, understand, this show comes out of our pockets.
Yep.
The rent for our studio, the equipment, everything. This comes out of our pockets. We haven't asked anybody for anything. For those people who go and subscribe to Counter Markets, that's fantastic. We get a chunk of that. It's helpful, but I'm hoping that you're subscribing to Counter Markets not to support us, but because you really like the content and you're trying to make some money. Same way with this book.
Awesome.
Right? So basically, what is the book? The book is the core of why life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Why, what are the inalienable rights? Why did they come from that? But not in a religious context. It's taking it back. I think this is the starting point for libertarians to have the points to argue and to understand why this is the principled stand to take. So you talk about principles and preferences in there. We talk about collectivism in there. And the very last chapter, very last essay is the crypto savage, so people can really get an idea of what the crypto savage is. If you want to do that, if you are a crypto savage, you want to get your advanced copy of the book before it's available to anybody. I'm only advertising. I'm only even talking about this on my social media and on this show. You can go here, you got the URL. You go to vinarmani.com/self-ownership. You're going to have to pay with cryptocurrency. You're going to have to do it the right way. That's how you're going to get this first one. It's going to be personalized. It's going to be signed. I'll sign it and personalize it however you want. Just vinarmani.com/self-ownership, and those books will be shipped out the first week of August. Thank you to the people who actually have already bought some. So that's great. Yeah, I just did like 2 tweets and people have already bought it. So that's fantastic. We're going to get into crypto now. Let's go story number 1. This was a huge week in the crypto world, a huge week in cryptocurrency, and a huge week really to look at the culture of crypto savagery. Okay, I know this word has now gotten picked up. It's a very cool word. It's a very cool term. It's a very cool thing to label yourself as. I agree. Crypto savage. Okay, so before we get into talking about what happened this week, I want to just give a breakdown of the definition of crypto savage as I coined it. It doesn't mean just someone who uses cryptocurrency. There's a lot of people out there who use cryptocurrency, obviously. There's a lot of people speculating in cryptocurrency, obviously. What it means is this. It's a statement about a culture that is not just cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a part of that culture. That culture is adopting cryptocurrency, but it's also adopting other things. It's adopting things like permaculture, like backyard gardening. It's adopting ideas like food sovereignty. It's a very libertarian culture. It's adopting voluntarism, agorism. What is the idea? The idea is this. When you live in a culture, all of the people in your culture are what you would call civilians, right? They share your culture. All of the people outside of your culture are savages. The word savage comes from sauvage, which means the woods, the wilds. It's French. So the idea was that there are these wild people out there that live out in the wilderness. They live in another place. Now, those people have a culture. When the Europeans showed up on the shores of the Americas, the natives who were here had 1,000-year-old cultures with language, some with writing, with religion, with social hierarchies, with histories, all of that. They had those things. Technology. They were savages to the Europeans. And to them, the Europeans were savages. They were dirty, they stunk, they lived with their animals, they wore too much clothing in the heat, they didn't know what was going on, they couldn't grow food, so the Europeans were savages. The idea of the crypto savage is this is a culture that's existing side by side with the old culture. Those of us who are crypto savages, we understand, I can walk around within this culture. I can operate within this culture. No one would look at me and think that I wasn't a civilian within this same Western culture, whatever you want to call it. It's not just West, it's a global culture. This global, statist, old culture. But the idea of the crypto savage is that it's a hidden, crypto meaning hidden or secret. That those of us are here and we're operating in this other culture that doesn't view and doesn't have the same values as the old culture. And that's very, very, very important. And you're going to see how that paradigm is reflected in the things that happened this week. So As I told Matthew Carano, we would have him on at 10:20. So let's blow through these so that people can see this. So first, this ICO funding. Yeah, I've been talking about ICOs, initial coin offerings. We have talked about it on the show. We had Kevin Hobbs of Van Beck's group, if you want to go back and look at that. We talked about it there. We talked about it a little bit with Eric Voorhees last week of Shapeshift. Thank both of those guys for being on. Here's how big it really is. Tech startups raised $1.3 billion this year from initial coin offerings. This is from Financial Times. Almost $1.3 billion has been raised so far this year by startup technology companies via initial coin offerings, the blockchain community's version of crowdfunding, according to a new report from Autonomous, the financial research provider. What is unclear from the report is whether this is a bubble linked to hype around cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, or if it represents deep change in the way startups raise money, equivalent in disruptive power to the launch of the internet. An ICO involves a company focused on blockchain technology selling digital tokens or coins, such as Ether or Bitcoin, that often enable investors who buy the tokens to use the software or service that the startup plans to produce. The money is usually raised in about 30 minutes, and investors are not given any stake in the company or voting rights. The report said some specialists were now calling ICOs token launches to avoid attracting scrutiny from securities regulators. Autonomous said, quote, "Imagine there are plans to open a new casino, and for funding, the casino sells its own plastic chips before opening, in anticipation of customers using these chips and creating economic value. Further, the buyers start trading these chips based on the expected value of the casino, how well attended it will be, and whether other chip holders are trading." I wish that they wouldn't have used the casino analogy, but there have been really two ICOs that I have said to everybody that one, I won't say I wasn't able to. One, I had misgivings about, which were then fixed, and that was Arcade City, which changed into Swarm City. And we'll talk about how the trials continue, but I think that it's well worth it. It's a bit of a hero's journey, this particular project, Swarm City. So I said, that's one that I believe in. I believe in the fundamentals because mainly the tokens that are there are the money of the economy that Swarm City is building. And we've had Matthew Carano on before to talk about that. If you want to go back and see all about Swarm City, you can do that. And I've talked about it more on this show. The other one that I've been very, very interested in is Filecoin. This is started by the guy, Juan Bennett, who basically built the interplanetary file system. I'm hoping to have him on the show after some of this energy and hype around his latest release cools down. Filecoin is basically the incentive program to get people to sit online and act as storage servers. Filecoin ICO launches on Thursday. This is from Forbes. Let's throw this up. One prime example of potential blockchain infrastructure is data storage, which has several projects competing to take on the likes of Amazon Web Services, all of them doing so with a native cryptocurrency or token that incentivizes each actor in the network to engage in various acts, such as offering storage on the network or paying for disk space. One of the most anticipated of these, Filecoin, launches its token sale, which features some innovative design choices next Thursday, July 27th. Quote, "The amount of storage that is out there that is not in use is enormous," says Juan Bennett, founder of Protocol Labs, the company behind Filecoin, which is also known for its other initiative, the Interplanetary File System, or IPFS, a system that aims to create a more resilient web. Bennett estimates the amount of unused disk storage is hundreds of exabytes, with 1 exabyte being equal to a quintillion bytes. All that storage is getting depreciated and wasted, and a lot of people are losing money every second, says Bennett. Quote, "All that storage could be put online and actually provide a valuable service to the world, and it could drop the price of storage significantly." Filecoin's initial coin offering is also notable because it is pioneering a new method for holding token sales that attempts to address one of the questions hanging over these crowd sales, whether or not they are legal. Since the Securities and Exchange Commission has not yet commented on whether crypto tokens that also function as equity in their networks are securities, the industry has largely tried to self-regulate. Protocol Labs, in conjunction with AngelList, whose chief executive and co-founder, Naval Ravikant, is a Protocol Labs investor, has created a new venture announced in May, CoinList, which plans to connect investors with new tokens. Filecoin is the first offering available on the site. Protocol Labs' other investors include Union Square Ventures, Y Combinator, Digital Currency Group, Winklevoss Capital, you may know Winklevoss from Facebook fame, and Fred Ehrsam, co-founder of Coinbase. Bennett addresses the criticism that requiring investors to be accredited contravenes the democratizing aspects of ICOs thus. Describing how risky these projects are because they are attempting to build unproven technology, he says, quote, "This isn't a standard investment or something so certain you can take a bank loan for. Instead, it's something you go to VCs for to help assess the risk involved. We think that a number of investments being created in the space have significant risk, and whether that risk means only accredited can participate is a jurisdiction question." So, Christian, this is a big ICO. This is one that I've been talking to everybody about that I wanted to get involved in. Unfortunately, I'm not an accredited investor, so I can't buy the ICO. However, Filecoin is a mined coin. So there's two things. There's the ICO, where you can get tokens that is basically, this is how they're funding the project.
Right.
And then there are the actual Filecoins, which are mined by miners. Those, you can still be a miner. What's great about this is Bitcoin and Ethereum leverage processor power, right? So you stack up a whole bunch of processors. It's GPUs, it's the graphic processors really that you use, you stack them for Bitcoin. And there's rooms and rooms, and that's how you mine Bitcoin. Filecoin, storage. So it's about people going out and getting all these unused hard drives. That's the whole idea. That there's all this storage out there that if we leveraged it, could basically create a whole new web that's virtually free.
That's cool.
Where storage is free, you would never need hosting. Files IPFS is super interesting. This is one that I believe in. As I said, there's only really two out that have really, really struck my fancy. That's one of them. That's a huge one to watch. Filecoin, giant. IPFS, it's a big deal. People should learn this is going to be the new way that the web works. And it's completely decentralized.
Swarm City uses that.
They do.
Yeah.
That's how you can actually back up your keys, or you back up your wallet onto IPFS. Decentralized, uncensorable, right? So we're going to talk about, there were some dark web takedowns. This potentially creates a situation where there isn't a dark web. It's just that the whole web is uncensorable. No one really owns any of the files. What you have is similar with the way that Bitcoin works. Nobody really owns any of the data in the blockchain. It's just that you can sign transactions if you have a private key. It's going to work very, very similar for IPFS. It's really, really cool. To this story, and while I'm on this story, why don't you go ahead and see if you can fire up Matt Corona. What I want to do, well, let's just go ahead and go to this. I think that that's a good enough intro for it. This is from cyberscoop.com. This is the heist. Hackers have stolen $32 million worth of Ether, a popular and increasingly valuable cryptocurrency, by exploiting a critical security vulnerability in wallet software that allowed an attacker to steal over 153,000 Ether. Now, remember, Ether is at around $200, so that's $32 million worth of Ether. The theft is visible on Ether's blockchain, according to Gavin Wood, a co-founder of Ethereum, the software behind the currency. The attack began on late Tuesday and continued on Wednesday in a total of 3 transactions. When the attack was finally noticed, a group of white hat hackers used the same exploit to drain money from other vulnerable wallets in order to protect them from the theft. The money saved totaled 377,000 ETH, worth over $75 million. Quote, "The white hat group were made aware of the vulnerability in a specific version of a commonly used multi-signature contract," the group wrote. "This vulnerability was trivial to execute, so they took the necessary action to drain every vulnerable multi-signature wallet they could find as quickly as possible. The ethical hackers promised to return the funds to their rightful owners once the security threat passed. The cryptocurrency appears to have been stolen from the online gambling websites Edgeless Casino, the smart contract platform Eternity, and the commerce platform Swarm City, according to a blog post from Swarm City." So to talk about this a little more, let's get some details because there have been a lot of questions. I would like to welcome Matthew Carano to the show. He has been on the show before. Welcome back, the head, or I should say one of the partners in the Swarm City Communication Hive. Matt, thanks for coming on the show to break this down for us.
Glad to be here. Thanks, man.
Okay, so first off, want to say fucking sucks. Very, very sorry that Swarm City happened to be one of the groups that was hit with this thing, unfortunately. But couldn't have happened to a better group, and I think that this is really going to bear out why Swarm City is deserving of all of the branding as it's been, as being sort of the true forerunners of what this thing could really be ideologically. So why don't you break down for us, so people can understand in layman's terms, what happened with this hack, what money was this that Swarm City had, and what does this mean for the project moving forward?
Sure, and thanks for the kind words, by the way. So it was just kind of crazy to live through. I just noticed in Slack right around noon, I think it was on Monday the 19th, that Bernd basically was saying, "Hey guys, can you check the wallet? There's a problem. I think we've been hacked," basically. And from his account or recount of the story, he looked at it, and then he saw the funds leave, and looked at the address that the funds went to, and noticed that there were three large transactions there, and those were, of course, our Ethereum, which totaled just over 44,000 ETH, and then as you mentioned before, when I joined the call, from Eternity and Edgeless as well.
So that was about $10 million, right? That was what I had read, was that it was about $10 million worth of Ethereum from Swarm City.
For us, yeah. Okay. Between 9 and 10, something like that.
Okay.
And then total taken was just north of 30 million or so. And so, I mean, he acted pretty quick. Like, we've got a lot of dev groups who are friends with our devs. It's kind of a close-knit community. And so when Bernd told us and got our devs involved, they made sure the Ethereum Foundation knew, and like I said, a bunch of dev groups, which the White Hat hacker group noticed, and they took action pretty immediately and ended up saving a bunch of other projects.
Now, so that people know, these guys were also, for those people who are kind of in the Ethereum community, these guys are also the guys who just recently got everybody their lost DAO Ether from both Classic and whatnot. These guys are going around fixing a lot of the problems and getting people their money back. I think one of the most amazing things about this story is I've never heard of this paradigm before. I've never heard of the paradigm of a group going in and stealing to prevent criminals from stealing, and then it's like somebody went into your house that was unlocked, stole all your shit, put it in a locked storage, and then was like, okay, here's the key to the locked storage because your house was completely open and I didn't want anybody to steal it. It's pretty amazing for that to happen on a level of what was it, $300 million that they're basically...
No, I think it was a total, I think it was 170 million, okay. Actually. The report that I heard you read, they say it was something like 70 or 80 million, okay. but from their own account, it was 170 million dollars.
And then these guys are giving it back to. It's pretty amazing. I mean, that's just that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they're really the heroes in this. And I've tried to keep telling people, like through Twitter and through every channel that I have, that these guys really deserve a lot of praise because if you think about it, they you have for a second the thought of, well, they did steal all this right. funds, right. but if they didn't, it would have been all lost, right? So right. So they did a great thing, and I think today is the day. We actually my Calm Hive stored funds in a multi-sig as well, and the White Hat group stole our funds too. And,
you had some funds that were saved that were associated with you guys. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I mean, it was a lot less. It was, I don't know, it was maybe like 80 ETH or something. But yeah, and then they sent us. So it's kind of interesting to get it from a couple different perspectives the same thing. Like they sent us the wallet address that we needed to go and check and make sure.
That's awesome.
That it was there and stuff. Yeah, it was cool.
So okay, so let's talk about these. Let's talk about these funds, because I think that a lot of people there's been a lot of questions of what were these funds. I think I have an idea of what the funds were. I think what people are the most concerned about was, I know that there were funds set aside to pay developers, but I also know that developers were being paid, at least some developers were being paid in SWAT, in Swarm City tokens, and I know this doesn't affect the SWAT wallets at all. What were these funds? What were they used for? And is them being gone, how is that going to affect the movement of the project overall?
I mean, it's a big blow. I would say that's north of 90% of the funds that we had for development and working on the platform. So yeah, I mean, we do have, right, our SWOT wasn't touched, so that's a good thing. We're still kind of assessing the whole situation, so I don't really have like all the specifics, but the vast majority of our funds that we were going to use for production and for other things, that's all gone. So I know, like, at a certain level, everybody who's involved, at least in the sort of the core team, the core developers and me, and Bernd, we're all really committed to seeing this through. I mean, we all own SWOT tokens, and to a certain extent, we feel responsible. Like, we want to make sure this platform happens. So there's the philosophical part of it, but then there's also the financial part. We own SWOT tokens, and we want to see that value increase too. So we're once again, we're sort of combined philosophically and financially, and we're committed to making this thing happen. Definitely.
So the core developers are still. I mean, I've now having met all of you guys in person, I can't imagine that anybody is thinking about, okay, I'm out, I'm stopping, because it was never really about that in the first place. I know that it's always been about a vision.
Yeah, I mean, we love the project, and there's no way. I mean, it wasn't even a consideration for a second that any of us would stop. No, we're going to definitely make it happen, and we're just focused. Like, it's just a way for us to refocus and just churn it out, basically.
So I mean, we are talking about quite a hit, yeah. Certainly, but I know that we're also talking about potentially this being a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem that's going on. So the incentives are still there for you guys to work. And I think that one of the most important things for people to look at in this is, when you're looking at what projects to back, I want you to imagine, and this is not for you, this is for the people out there. When you're looking at what projects to back with these ICOs, I want you to imagine that ICO getting 90% of their funds stolen, and then imagine, would they be sitting there saying, we're still continuing with the project? And I think that is how you measure who is going to be the winners in this thing and who are just basically conning you. So, I mean, I know this has been a tough week, dude, and I'm actually going to be up at Free Coast Festival, in September, so I'll see you there, yeah. And I know that some of the other guys are going to be there as well. So I look forward to talking with you. You guys go back, lick your wounds. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. It's amazing. I know that this is going to pull through. I thank you for coming on, man, at this time, man.
Thank you.
And yeah, keep doing your thing. Keep us informed, and I'm going to keep supporting you guys.
Appreciate it, Ben. Thanks.
All right, brothers. Thanks so much. So, Christian, that's I think that is a real measure of what is this supposed to be, and a real measure of crypto savagery. Like, who's in this?
Absolutely.
Who's in this to create something of value? Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's so funny. And, like, I hate to say Vinstradamus, but this is what we've been talking about for weeks. Mm-hmm. For weeks.
Yep.
Like, are you in this for the speculation, or are you in this because you're a crypto savage and you want to create something of value?
That's the perfect demonstration right there. I mean, just dedication.
Well, it's also about having a sense of ownership.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about having a sense of ownership and a sense of community, and that's what's going to make this whole thing work. We're coming into a new age. And in this new age, it's about individuals cooperating together. Mm-hmm. It's about individuals taking on individual agency for the projects that they have, getting involved with things for love, for passion. Here's the deal. We're living in a society where you're not going to starve on the street.
Yeah.
You're not going to starve on the street. And I hope that these guys realize, I know that they realize, I know that they love the project, but I hope that they realize that from the outside, $10 million seems like a hit now. Mm-hmm. $10 million for what Swarm City can be is Nothing.
Nothing.
$10 million is the amount of money that's going to move through one city on one hashtag in one day when the whole storefront project is up. Maybe this pushes it back a little bit. Maybe that's okay. Maybe this gets the speculators away. It's always better to be underestimated and then over-deliver.
Yeah.
That's always better than to be hyped and to have people feel like you under-delivered. Maybe this is, I hate to say it, but maybe this is the best thing that could have happened. And it's an open source project. So the great thing about it is now is also a chance for those devs who are out there who are like, I want to come on board. I want to come on board now. I want to do this work because I believe in it. Like, this is one of the few projects that has it behind it. Filecoin also has that behind it, and IPFS. These are the types of things that if people really want to change the world, this is the way to go. So let's talk about changing the world, because the world is changing. As we start to talk about these new crypto savage economies, they're not businesses, right? This is a decentralized autonomous organization. This is a DAO that we're talking about, right?
More than a business.
We're starting to see why centralization, if you centralize as a crypto savage, you're fucked. It's unfortunate that Ross Ulbricht had to be sort of the standard bearer for this. Somebody who stepped out, was all about free markets, libertarian values, using cryptocurrency, definitely using Tor, definitely a crypto savage if ever there was one, and seriously, the users of Silk Road, crypto savages as well. We know the story of Ross Ulbricht. For those who don't, go and check out any of our interviews with Lynn Ulbricht. It's a story that you should know. For a crypto savage, he's our Nelson Mandela.
Yep.
Truly, truly. Well, in the absence of Silk Road, other markets popped up. You can't just create a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like, once there's no technological hurdle, so they've been going after these markets. And why don't you go ahead and throw this? Oh, we don't have that. Did I not add this in the dark web?
No.
Well, that sucks. So months of preparation and coordination have resulted on 20th of July, 2017. Go and look and see if you can't maybe find it in the just in those, and maybe just cut to it. This is from Europol. In the takedown of two of the largest criminal dark web markets, Alphabay and Hansa. That's good enough. Just leave that. Two major law enforcement operations led by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, and the Dutch National Police, with the support of Europol, have shut down the infrastructure of an underground criminal economy responsible for the trading of over 350,000 illicit commodities. This is interesting. Illicit commodities, including drugs, firearms, and cybercrime malware. The coordinated law enforcement action in Europe and the U.S. ranks as one of the most sophisticated takedown operations ever seen in the fight against criminal activities online. So this is now from Activist Post, giving us a little more. Donald Trump orders DOJ to take down darknet markets. During a press briefing at the Department of Justice, DOJ, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions revealed that President Donald Trump ordered the DOJ to go after, quote, organized transnational cybercrime organizations operated on the darknet. Quote, Donald Trump gave us several directives. One is to dismantle transnational criminal organizations. That is what we are announcing today. Dismantling of the largest dark website in the world by far, Sessions said. Sessions stated that the recent takedown of Alphabay, a darknet market similar to Silk Road, is part of the battle against opioid addiction in the United States, adding that one American dies of a drug overdose every 11 minutes. He then pointed out that he knew of several Americans killed by drugs sold on Alphabay and gave examples. One victim was just 18 years old when, in February, she overdosed on a powerful synthetic opioid which she bought on Alphabay. The drug was shipped right to her house through the mail, Sessions said. Christian, a powerful synthetic opioid. That was a prescription painkiller.
Exactly. That's some bullshit.
He said one American dies of a drug overdose every 11 minutes. The opioid crisis comes from prescription opiates. People get hooked on OxyContin, was about to say Viagra.
Oh, shit.
They get hooked on that too.
Yeah.
Vicodin. And then when it gets too expensive and they can't afford that anymore, they go to heroin on the street because the heroin's cheaper. And then when they try to get off that, they get on the Suboxone. Then they're on the fucking Suboxone. And yet, the problem is the dark web.
Right,
the problem
exactly.
is
Fucking bullshit.
the problem isn't the doctors prescribing the drugs. The problem isn't the legal pain clinics in Florida where you can just walk in and basically walk out with 20 prescriptions and people pop from pain clinic to pain clinic getting a handful of scripts and then handing them all in. The problem's not that CVS has become the local drug dealer. No. The problem is that some of those drugs then end up on dark web markets. But here's the thing. So drugs. Moving through these illicit commodities, drugs, right? But we're already moving as a culture toward legalization and taxation, unfortunately. It would be nice to have decriminalization. Second, firearms. Firearms, protected by the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, the right of ownership of something. Again, the book, Self-Ownership, people can go and check it out. They can go right vinarmani.com/ throw that address up there again. vinarmani.com/self-ownership. These are the topics that we really get into. Who owns what? What does ownership mean? The right to keep and bear arms is the right to own guns.
Yeah.
If you own something, you can give it away, you can bury it, you can shoot it into space, you can burn it, or you can sell it. That's ownership.
Yep.
That's what ownership fucking means. It's because, and that's why I chose to write the book. Because it's become so easy when you think, wait, do I own this? Yes. Can I sell it? Yes. That's it.
Yeah.
If it's legal for me to own, how can it not be legal for me to sell? Because if
Right.
it's legal for me to own, in most cases, right? Like, so for instance, we've got all this alcohol here. If we wanted to call up all of our friends, take this alcohol down, and just start pouring it for them, and we're all drinking and we're in here, fine. Fine. If we say we're going to sell it, here comes code enforcement,
Yep. Going to jail.
illegal sales, illegal alcohol sales. The fuck? If I send a gift of a bottle of wine in the mail, no problem. Right? No problem. Send a gift of a bottle of wine. But if you paid me for that bottle of wine, you see, this is a problem. This
Right.
is a principle issue.
Yeah.
And the founding fathers, yes, they were embodying these things, but they couldn't yet articulate it. These were still very new concepts. Now we can articulate them, and we need to start articulating them now because we're getting far, far, far away from it. So why don't you go ahead and take that off, dude. So, interestingly, this Alphabet site, they arrested the head in Thailand. And then this guy, basically the Ross Ulbricht of Alphabet, just winds up dead in his cell.
Oh, shit.
They just found him surprisingly dead in his cell after being arrested and after having millions in cryptocurrency. I think 100-something million in cryptocurrency taken. And then he just wound up dead. They don't want another Ross Ulbricht.
Wow.
So that's centralization. Centralization, if you centralize, they can go after you. Part of being a crypto savage is understanding decentralization. Why is it important? It's our greatest weapon. Yeah, you lose a little bit. You do. You lose a little bit. But it's your greatest weapon in this whole fight. That's the new paradigm, is decentralization. We need to decentralize our minds. So what's interesting about about the heist story, what I find most interesting is the white hat group, obviously. I think that's the silver lining in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Are these heroes. These guys are fucking heroes.
Yep.
They're heroes. And it just goes to show when people are like, oh, we need government to protect us. Do you really?
Right.
They didn't even pay these guys up front. The fact of the matter is, there are more human beings. This is just true, okay? There's maybe 3% of the population are psychopaths that have no empathy or compassion. They're just born that way. We know this. This has been studied. Psychopathy. You can go and look at the Hare psychopathy. Dr. Robert Hare, I'd love to have him on the show to talk about what psychopathy is. It's super interesting. We really need to understand it, especially as we're moving into this sort of, it's important for a crypto savage to understand, because that's the real problem. And the real problem with the state is an institution, because it's a monopoly on violence, basically makes legal immorality. It's a perfect place for a psychopath to go, because psychopaths want to be immoral.
Absolutely. Yep.
So you just create this wonderful, could we just create a whole institution that can pay psychopaths? Because otherwise, psychopaths in other societies, you just get killed. There's a psychopath in Amish society, that person doesn't get to live there. Right? So, and where was I with this whole thing? Oh, there are way more people who want desperately to help those in need than there are people who want to hurt, steal, rape, murder. There are way more people who want to prevent those things from happening.
Right.
And who will help a stranger in need. If they have the technical skill, they will help a stranger in need just to help.
Yeah. It feels good.
And the thing is, the state disenables those people. Like, people want to help. People want to protect. There are way more people with an instinct for protection. How do we know this? Because we're fucking alive. You know, it's one of the biggest things that pisses me off about third wave feminism is this idea of toxic masculinity. It's like, really? Really? Because I think it is the male impulse to protect those who are weaker than us that has enabled all of this shit to be built. That has enabled safe spaces, the real safe spaces, like your fucking house, like your street. That's the non-toxic masculinity. I think when they say toxic masculinity, they're talking about psychopathy.
Yeah.
And yeah, the state looks psychopathic because it's a bunch of fucking psychopaths. It's a psychopathic institution. Don't look to the state. Look to your neighbor. Look to your neighbor. That's the person who's not psychopathic, and you know it. That's what we have to be thinking about. We have to be empowering, and that's what these technologies do. They empower the good guy. There's no place for a psychopath in this. Yeah, in these early days, they'll get off a few heists, and I guarantee you those were state actors that did that. The NSA, CIA, FBI, we already know. The FBI and NSA agents from the Silk Road case were stealing from Mt. Gox and Silk Road. We're hacking Mt. Gox and Silk Road. These guys are hacking the cryptocurrencies. I guarantee you these are rogue state actors who did that shit. Or just state actors, period, like North Korea or something like that. I guarantee you. The crypto savages are the ones saving it. Trying to make this thing go.
Wow. It's fucking incredible.
And I'm going to show you an example. This is not new. This is funny. Roger Ver, who we're going to have on the show soon, the Bitcoin Jesus. Check it. Throw this Roger Ver story up because this is interesting. This was a while back. This is in 2014. This has been going on in this community. This is from Wired. This is what happens when you hack and extort the Bitcoin Jesus. When the man known as the Bitcoin Jesus got hacked, he didn't go straight to the police. He just tapped the power of Bitcoin. Last week, Roger Ver, an American-born expat living in Japan, who's long been at the heart of the worldwide Bitcoin community, was contacted by a hacker who had seized control of his old Hotmail account and used it to nab his social security number, passport number, and other personal information. The hacker threatened to exploit this information unless Ver forked over about 37 bitcoins, the equivalent of $20,000. But then Ver used the same number of bitcoins to put out a bounty on the hacker, and this instantly transformed the brazen cybercriminal into a penitent stooge. Quote, "Sir, I am sincerely sorry. I am just a middleman. I was being told what to tell you," the hacker told Veer soon after the bounty was posted, before later asking, "Are you going to order a hitman to kill me now?" Libertarians have long hailed Bitcoin as a way to free the world from the control of big government and of big banks. But with his 37 Bitcoin bounty, Veer has given the world's most popular digital currency a new kind of libertarian cred. For Veer, the digital currency is not just a way of storing and moving money without help from the authorities, it's also a way of seeking justice, something that's laid out in the Skype chat logs that Veer provided of his conversation with the hacker. Sure, you can wield this type of bounty using other currencies, and many have, but there's something particularly appropriate about doing it with Bitcoin. Why don't you show Roger Veer talking about this project here? This is the bounty bid.
Hello, I'm Roger Veer, longtime Bitcoin proponent. Today, I'm proud to announce the launch of BitcoinBountyHunter.com. BitcoinBountyHunter.com represents the first step into a new era for law enforcement and the protection of individual rights. Thanks to Bitcoin, now, for the first time ever, anyone across the globe can privately contribute funds to individual bounties that will directly motivate law enforcement agencies to arrest perpetrators of crimes that people actually care about. People with information about the crimes can now anonymously provide law enforcement with that information and then anonymously collect the bounty. And perhaps, most interestingly of all, now law enforcement officers themselves can directly and anonymously collect bounties for actually doing their jobs. This website is just the first step. In the coming months, we hope to build a completely decentralized, trustless system to enable these same things, but without requiring a central organizer. Thanks to Bitcoin, and with your help, we can all build a better world. Today is September 17th, 2014, and Bitcoins are about $460 US.
So, Christian, why don't you go ahead and... This is what crypto savagery is about.
Yeah, this is great.
This is the understanding. Remember we talked with Tim Moen, and he was discussing how he's a firefighter, but he very much believes in these private firefighting models. Great interview, by the way. If you haven't seen the Tim Moen interview, the head of the Libertarian Party of Canada, please go check it out. Super
Great.
Cool guy. Great interview. He's talking about, moving... How certain places in Africa, of all places, have moved first responder services, paramedics, EMS, and fire services over into the private sector, and it works out great. He talked about initially in Scottsdale, Arizona, was actually sort of the test case for this. Here we go with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Right? For people who are like, we need the state because otherwise people will be robbing and killing. It's like, why don't we move the law enforcement? Why don't we move protection into the private arena? What I find interesting is those people who have the most funds, right? This includes people in government. They all have private security.
Right.
The wealthiest individuals, if the state was the best means of keeping yourself safe, why do all of the most wealthy individuals rely on private security? Why do corporations, large multinational corporations, when they send their C-level executives or their vice presidents into places that might be a little dangerous, why do they send them with security details? Private security details, paid for.
Floyd Mayweather.
He's
got a
entourage of bodyguards.
Yeah, those guys are with him all
the time. So, what do we see? We see that if you really want security, it's in the private market. This is already true. If you really want to not be stolen from, not murdered, not assaulted, the answer is in the private market. Because if it was in the state, these people would not be spending the money. If it was in making laws, if it was in all of this, then they would be pushing for more laws instead of just getting bodyguards.
Right.
So what does decentralization do? What does this new model do? This new model enables a network effect in the private market. So that is to say, perhaps you are within Swarm City, right? You're operating in the Swarm City economy. And you also, some percentage of your SWAT on this particular hashtag, if you interact through this hashtag within Las Vegas, let's say, It's basically a fee every single time that something's used, and it goes to police and fire. And because you're on this hashtag and because you have this particular address, you're able to send a whisper message to police, the private police, who aren't going out doing anything except only privately helping
Wow.
those people who are within this hashtag, who have these hashes, only helping those few addresses.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like they show up like, boom, they're there instantly.
Right. A glimpse into the future.
Oh, dude, it's here.
Yeah, it's shit.
I mean, these are the opportunities of the new economy.
Yeah.
That it's like security companies, oh, huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have, for instance, Cell 411. I've always thought that was missing, because that was missing something. Because what Cell 411 is kind of the idea of, and honestly, it's coming from a sort of collectivist ideal. It's this idea that, like, well, people should do it for the common good, out of their good of their own heart, that they should cooperate and help each other. And it's like, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's nice that you would help your friends. But when I want something done, like, if I'm hearing a weird, like, dinging when I drive my car, a weird tick, a weird clunking noise, yeah, I could take it to my neighbor who's a nice guy who knows something about cars, but I'm going to take it to a fucking professional mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
You get what you pay for. If I want to be secured, I want to be secured by a trained individual. If I need to hire a plumber, I want an experienced and well-reviewed plumber, and I'm going to pay them, because I don't want pipes busting, and I don't want to go through all that fucking problem with just getting some random person who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Right. So yeah, it's great to, like...
Same thing with doctors, too.
Oh, dude. Yeah, you going to do Cell 411 for cancer?
Shit.
Yeah, I got some cancer. Let me hit my Cell 411 here. Anybody local who can help with cancer? You'd probably get a witch doctor or some type of shit. No, but this is the truth. That it's like, people spend money training themselves to do things. Mm-hmm. And then you need to be able to pay those people. So what we need to figure out, and what is being figured out, is how do you sort of take this network effect? That, yeah, it just seems like it's money that you wouldn't even miss going out here. The same way that you almost don't miss, like, sales tax. But instead of going through this whole hierarchy of, okay, then it goes to the tax board, then it goes here, then it goes to the treasury, you're paying for this huge bureaucracy. Yeah. It's like, no, here's the sales tax, literally goes right into the police officer's wallet instantaneously.
Mm-hmm. Smart contracts.
Smart contracts, this is what it is, dude. The bureaucrats are going to be gone. I mean, we're going to be talking about all these bureaucrats basically falling back on universal basic income. That's what it's going to be. That's a discussion for another time. We're just about coming up on it. You want to try to see if you can't get in contact with Jeffrey Tucker.
Okay. But
let's do this. Let's go to break. We'll come back. We'll talk about counter markets. Maybe we'll throw up the book. Let's throw up the book one more time for those people who are just tuning in. My new book, Self-Ownership, Foundation of Property and Morality. Christian's got it. If you want your advanced copy, these are going to be sent to you, and you will receive them before anybody else can buy it on Amazon, before Kindle. It's also going to be out on Audible. These will be signed and personalized. I'm not advertising this in a big way. I'm doing it on the show, maybe a few tweets on Twitter. This is for you guys. This is for the crypto savages. Got to pay in cryptocurrency, though. That's part of the deal. Got to pay in cryptocurrency. If you don't have a Bitcoin wallet, hey, this is a great excuse for you to go do it. Get this book, first edition, and the first printing of it. vinarmani.com/self-ownership. Let's go to break. We're going to come back with Jeffrey Tucker in the second hour. Welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. And of course, we are streaming live on the Facebook page of our content partner, Activist Post. That's facebook.com/Activist Post. Before we get to this interview, just want to give you a little update on what's going on with Countermarkets. Countermarkets at countermarkets.com, trends and strategies for maximum freedom. This is our newsletter. What are we in? This is the July issue is out. The August issue will be coming soon. So if you haven't gotten your July issue, go to countermarkets.com. Get your first issue for free. Just give us your email address. No other strings attached. We know that you're going to enjoy it so much that you're going to want to subscribe. And by the way, Crypto Savages, if you subscribe using cryptocurrency, and we take a whole basket of cryptocurrency, if you subscribe using cryptocurrency, you're going to get a massive discount. This month, excellent content. We do have a lot on cryptocurrency, also some things on some laws that will affect you as an agorist, and of course, we've got our silver reports as well. This next month, I'm going to be doing a report on the financials of running your own Bitcoin ATM with the new Bitcoin, the blockchain laws changing and becoming a little more lenient and accepting in both New Hampshire and Nevada, and I think coming in some other states as well very soon. This is a potential business. There are still not a lot of Bitcoin ATMs that have serious penetration. Vegas is one of the cities where there are tons of them, but this is a worldwide phenomenon, and it's actually a lot less expensive than you would think. So that is coming out in the next issue. Go and get this issue now. Get that one for free, and then you can subscribe, and you can get not just the issues to come, but all of the back issues as well. You'll have access to all of those, as well as a private Facebook group. You call that kind of your agorist mastermind group. Libertarian mastermind group. So countermarkets.com, trends and strategies for maximum freedom. Go check it out now. Speaking of libertarian masterminds, I am glad to bring on our guest. Do we have him? Yes, we do. Mr. Jeffrey Tucker, Christian, if you will. Jeffrey Tucker is Director of Content for the Foundation for Economic Education. He's also Chief Liberty Officer and founder of Liberty.me, Distinguished Honorary Member of Mises Brazil, Research Fellow at the Acton Institute, Policy Advisor of the Heartland Institute, founder of the Cryptocurrency Conference, member of the editorial board of the Molinari Review, and advisor to the blockchain application builder Factom, and author of 5 books. He's written 150 introductions to books and many thousands of articles appearing in the scholarly and popular press. Jeffrey Tucker, welcome to the Vin Armani Show.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
I have wanted to have this interview for months and months and months, ever since we actually took the same plane out of Acapulco a very hungover morning. And
I remember you don't, but I do.
Yeah, I was a little bleary-eyed that day. So I'm glad to have you on the show. I'm sure plenty of the people watching know who you are. Would you say that you're the most prolific writer sort of in the libertarian movement right now? I would think so. There's something from you almost every day, no?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, in order to write, you really have to think about the next thing, not the things in the past. And I always get people asking me questions. You know, if you had one article you would draw me to illustrate your view on the world, you know, which one would it be? And I always just say, I don't know, the one I'm going to write tomorrow. You know, I don't know. You know, history's moving so fast. I don't really care about the past. I just really care about what's coming tomorrow.
Well, and you very much are a man of the moment. I mean, you're one of the. It's you know, it's so interesting that so many intellectuals in the libertarian movement are so disconnected from popular culture, and yet you are so amazingly able to go into popular culture and to draw out sort of the principles that are there. How much reading are you doing on a daily basis? How much research are you doing?
Not enough, ever. You know, I mean, you know, you dig and dig and dig. I don't know. I feel like I'm constantly in a state of discovery, and I discover things every day. And you know, you can ask my team. I work with a pretty big team, right? And I don't know, every day I'm just shocked by stuff, and you know, and then I'll be reading some book from 1934 or something, you know, some weird treatise that nobody knew existed, but it was strangely influential then, but nobody's heard about now. And it just kind of blows my mind. I'd like, oh my God. And I don't know. I don't know. People, I just kind of go from obsession to obsession. I mean, this is the way I roll, you know. I don't know. It's probably wrong.
Well,
you know, but
clearly not. I mean, you've had a massive influence. I think everybody that meets you or gets to hear you speak or reads your work is influenced by you. But what a lot of us don't know, at least what I feel like I haven't heard enough of, how did you come to libertarianism? Because certainly when people come to this thing, you're like standing right there, like, welcoming them through the door, right? I mean, it's almost impossible to miss you. How did you come to this?
yeah, I mean, nobody knows the history of your own ideas. Our ideas are so complicated, and so every time you tell a story about some intellectual revelation you have, it's going to be different. And basically, it's fabrications made up. But I do know that, like, when I was a junior in high school, I started reading Rand. But I'm pretty sure I only used her ideas to bamboozle dates and stuff. I'm not sure. You know what I mean? I'm not sure it went any further than that, you know? She just kind of gave me a language apparatus to seem smart, you know?
I love it.
Right? I don't know. Maybe you had that happen to you, but I look back and I'm slightly mortified. But then so a few years went by, and I became an economics major in college because, you know, I was a musician. And everybody expected me to do music. I mean, all my teachers and my parents and my friends, like, I wasn't anything but a musician. But there was this moment when I was 17, and I was 17 because I was 17 and a half, right? And I remember thinking, I don't know what made me realize it, but I suddenly thought, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I don't have to do the thing I'm supposed to do. I mean, just because, like, my parents and my teachers and all the authority figures in my life, and it was scripted to be this way. Ultimately, like, who's in charge of my life? And I've got a big life ahead of me, presumably, you know, that I'm going to live a while, God willing. So why can't I just change? Maybe I'll be something else. It was a weird moment for me because but like before, and I was 17 and a half years old. I didn't know before then that you could actually, like, do that. And it struck me as a dangerous and exciting step. I know you're thinking, oh, that's not very dramatic, but it was for me. You know, to discover that I could be in charge of what I did. It was weird. So I went to the university, right? So I graduated early from high school. So I went to college, and I just kind of, like, shopped around, like, what is my major? What do I care about? And the only thing that seemed interesting to me was economics, because the department head said to me something like, oh, through economics you will discover why some people are poor, some people are rich, why nations rise and why they fall, while human beings flourish, or why they just scratch the dirt. And I thought, that's everything I want to know, you know? I mean, that's it. So I was a happy and proud economics major. But, you know, in economics and normal economics, I went to 2 years of just straight Keynesian theory. That's not what I learned, you know? Right. And so I bumped into literature as an accident. Like, my roommate, you know, had a book by Hans Sennholz that went through the Weimar inflation. And I remember being amazed. I thought, okay, so they got the money system wrong, and it turned the whole of society upside down. And, like, all of history was different. And I thought, that is interesting. It's the relationship between the mechanics of economics and the reality of human existence, you know, and how that determines our fate. I want to know more about that. So the more I learned, I mean, I just gradually got led into the whole topic of human liberty. And the great thing, Vin, about that topic is that there's essentially no end to it. Like, you can never get bored with the topic of human liberty, because you find it everywhere. It offers the answers to everything, in the future, the present, the past, in every single discipline, in every country, and all of human experience, apparently forever. And so, yeah, that's a lot to discover and understand. So I just couldn't ever let go of that idea. And also, it's really underrepresented. So it kind of makes, right? Yeah. So that's what began it all. So everything I've ever done is always centered on that idea, and I never get tired of exploring it.
So I think it is one thing that now, and I'm glad that many more people, especially the sort of younger set that is coming to libertarianism, is coming to it, or that is coming to the ideas of liberty, or is coming to it with economics in mind. Now, I myself come from a very, I would say, socially liberal family, but that definitely leans to the left, however. So
Yeah.
economics was not, like human liberty, yes, big deal. Economics, not such a big deal. Not
Right.
something that we really were concerned about. And now, in the past probably 10 years, I've realized, oh no, it's free markets equal free people and vice versa. Free people equal free markets, right? And
That's the thing for the left, especially apparently, right? So I never really had that. I kind of regret it. I never really had that left cast of mind, really. So I don't. It's hard for me to kind of fully identify with that. But apparently, it really does come down to confusion over economics.
Yes, for sure.
Narrowly construed, yeah.
So, now it seems, and certainly I've been an activist since I was very young. I come from an activist family. I have, as of late, it's been very interesting. As of late, I would have never thought of myself as, or called myself, a conservative, and I think maybe even my style of dress really would let people know that I would never really consider myself to be a conservative. However, I'm feeling as though, from an economic standpoint, there are a lot of fundamentals and a lot of principles that have been left behind. I mean, I guess you could call me classical liberal, whatever. I think a lot of people want to use that term right now. What I wanted to talk with you about, because you really blew my mind with the talk that you gave at Anarchapulco, and I don't know if that's up online, but I think that if it is, if people could get a hold of it, everybody should see it. I mean, standing ovation at the end. I walked out of there in a haze. A lot to think about. We have been talking about, a lot of people, even especially people on the right, are saying that it's no longer about right and left, that it's about authoritarian and libertarian. But it is still about right and left, because we still have the state involved. There are still things pulling against us. It seems as though there are so many people who are claiming to be libertarian, but are saying, well, I hate left libertarians, and then they're talking about throwing people out of helicopters, and it's like, okay, is this libertarian? You had yes, and we talk about it on the show. The left is a big problem right now, mainly because they've had power in the West for the last decade and a half, like massive power. Now the right is making a little bit of a swing. Could we talk a little bit about authoritarianism versus libertarianism? And then can we talk about the packages? And that's a great term that you used just a few minutes ago when we were talking on the phone, but before the show. The packages that left authoritarianism comes in, and right authoritarianism, and why we should be paying attention to the right.
So I like your term classical liberal. I want to eliminate the first word. It's really just liberalism. Right. And liberalism has a 500-year-old tradition. I mean, it was about the place of commerce and the possibility of leaving feudalism, empowering the middle class, a vision of the world in which everybody flourishes. That was a really radical view in 16th, 17th century. It was just, for the first time, people discovered it in the whole of human history. Religious freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to own stuff and trade, and not be a member of a guild, actually have progress during your life. These were all contributions that liberalism made. And then after World War II, we kind of lost control of that term for some reason. So then we came up with this term libertarian, but it's an unfortunate term in a way, because it cuts us off from that history. Mm-hmm. And so we tend to think of ourselves as this weird new people, which is not true. The other thing is it cuts us off from a global connection, because everywhere else in the world, people are still talking about liberals versus everything else. Right. And I think that's what it is. It really is liberalism versus whatever you want to call it. And there's rightist statism and there's leftist statism. So we're kind of fortunate to be alive right now, because, like you say, during the last decade and a half or so, we've only kind of known left statism. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the current generation now alive doesn't recognize or even smell right statism, because we're just not that familiar with it. So a lot of my writing over the last year has really been kind of trying to travel this journey of discovering the rightist branch of statism as it's existed for the last really 100, really 200 years, more than 200 years, and trace it out through thinker after thinker. And what I've put together in my own mind, in any case, I'm not the first, right? There are other people, not that many, that are traced through a secret intellectual history of right statism, which goes by many different names, right? So it could be, I think technically it should be considered right Hegelianism. It's also called fascism. Yes. Sometimes it's called conservatism, or these days like the alt-right, or nationalism, or racialism, theocracy. There's a lot of different brands of it, but really it's all in kind of one big basket. It's people that want to divide society by, like the left divides society by class.
Yes.
They're like, oh, you suck because you're rich, right? That's the essence of leftism.
Right.
Rightism wants to divide society according to other criterion. They keep evolving. It's like language, race, religion, geography, dynasty. There's all these other considerations. And if you look at current political debate, you can pretty much classify everybody into one of those two camps.
Yes.
And so what my main point of writing over the last couple of years is like, okay, we're presented now with something we don't know that well, which is this right authoritarianism. We don't sense it, we don't smell it, and we're bugged by it a little bit, or maybe we love it. Either way, the helicopter people and so on. But I've been very anxious to describe this tradition, explain its origins, trace it through history, and explain how this sort of disease is still in our midst. Even if you don't recognize it or entirely understand it, it's still there. I think before the show we talked about it. It's like, ideas work a little bit like genetics. And so genetics can hop over generations. I mean, somebody who met your grandfather, may notice that you and he have the same gait when you walk.
Oh, they tell me, the people who knew my grandfather tell me I look just like him.
So
which is funny.
That's interesting. And you probably never, knew him that well.
No.
But so that's the thing, right? So we inherit these ideas, even if we don't know them or understand their origin, they're still all around us. So it's been kind of a project of mine to discover this all the time. And it's been absolutely riveting to me, because I didn't know anything about this until, really just a few years ago. I knew a little bit about it, but not enough to kind of recognize it as a real ideology, But now it's become this real ideology. So you asked me what I read. I mean, I spend a weird amount of time reading some extremely dark literature from like the 1920s and 30s and 40s of this guy, of these guys who represent this point of view. And they're bloodthirsty, they're crazy, they have a loathing for human life and humanity. And like an apocalyptic vision. They were deeply, deeply influential in the interwar period. And we thought we kind of like killed off this stuff after World War II. But it's not true. I mean, ideas are weirdly immutable. They always stick around. But we have to discover them on our own. So the last few days I've been reading this. I mean, it's weird to you, right? I think in Anarcho-Polka I talked about people like Houston Stewart Chamberlain, and Carl Schmitt, and Johann Fichte, and George Frederick Hegel, and the right and left Hegelians, John Ruskin, and Carlyle from Britain, and Giovanni Gentile from Italy, and all these assholes, right? But right. But like a couple of days ago, I discovered the weirdest dude I've ever known, and his name is, get this, Julius Caesar Evola.
Huh.
Or it looks like Evola.
Like Ebola.
Yeah, right? So it turns out he's got like 10 books, and he was huge. He was like Mussolini's top theorist, and all of his books are in English now, and you can download them on Amazon and get into that guy's head. It's really like, you've entered in the insane asylum or something, And so I'm reading this stuff obsessively. He's far crazier than like even Spengler or any of these weirdos at the turn of the century, because by mid 20th century everybody had lost their minds. But he was hugely influential, and I only found out about this guy because Steve Bannon, right, White House advisor, inadvertently cites this dude with authority in an interview.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's like, well, as Evelyn pointed out, and I thought, who the hell is that? So I looked him up and like, whoa! You talk about opening up, like a door and entering into a dark place.
Well, so this is okay. I want to talk about this a little bit because I think that this is a very, very important point. There has been this idea. I mean, it still is existing in places in the West. I think that this in many ways goes to a deeper discussion about free speech, but where it's like Hitler's books, for instance, banned in Germany. You know what I mean? Where you can't read Mein Kampf in school in Germany. And I think most people would be like, well, then how do we stop it from happening again? Like, how do we, if you don't know it? So it's like this idea of killing the ideas that you disagree with seems to, because they're not going away. Like those books stick around, but then the people on the right side of history forget about them too. And then it's like some Lord of the Rings shit where he sleeps and then Sauron pops back up. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like to me.
Oh, right. And banning, it's so bad to ban books because then it just makes them like super fashionable among the most courageous people, right? So only courageous, daring people read banned books.
Right.
And so you put together a demographic of dedicated, smart people who love some weird idea that somebody else banned. It's absolutely the worst thing that ever happened. That Mein Kampf, I believe, should be translated into every language and read everywhere, and should have always been. And I say this is also true for Nazi propaganda films. It's astounding to me. Like there are movies that they made, like Triumph of the Will,
which is a crazy movie when you look at it compared to anything. It's an amazing movie compared to anything that was made at that time.
It's an amazing movie. I think everybody should watch it.
Yeah.
And I can't say I watched all the way through because unfortunately, I'm a little tender and it upset me too much. But The Eternal Jew is also available on YouTube. This is a Nazi propaganda film, made in the immediate aftermath of the invasion of Poland, right? Mm-hmm. So I think everybody should watch that too. I mean, we have to know who these people are. But you're right. In Germany, this stuff was banned. It's only recently available, actually. In fact, I have an article on Fee called something like "Why You Should Watch This Nazi Propaganda Film." I think it's really important that people see these things, and also it's such a mistake you can't suppress ideas by banning them. That is a terrible. It's terrible. We need absolute open distribution of all these things. I get it, right? I've been to the Holocaust Museum. It's a terrifying experience to go through that and see what happened and everything. But I also understand, at the end of it, you're like, well, these ideas are so dangerous and so bad, they should be banned. I get why people say that, right? But it's a mistake. The human mind will not be kept in a cage. And if you tell somebody you're not allowed to investigate this line of thinking, this way of thinking is very bad. Look, we're just rebels. People are just rebels in their mind. They're going to be attracted to it. The best thing and you have to have absolute confidence in free speech, right? The best thing you can do is never ban anything. Just make all ideas available and let people confront, the horror of Nazi ideology. I think it's essential. It's the worst mistake after World War II to try to suppress all that stuff. In fact, I think you make a great point. That may be precisely why we're dealing with similar ideologies.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think you might be right about it. I mean, it's very interesting. It should have extinguished, but it doesn't because we keep banning it, right?
Right. And then it goes underground and it grows. And this so I wanted to bring up this point because, as a student of history and a student of philosophy, certainly, and political science, it seems like we are on. It's been very important for me to really see that you are taking on this right authoritarianism because it seems like we are on this cycle back up. It seems like on the, and I don't know why these people are calling themselves libertarians, right? These Hoppian snake meme, throw them out of helicopters, but they're calling themselves anarcho-fascists, which I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's an oxymoron. Like, I don't know how that could possibly even work. But what is interesting to me is that they are the only ones willing to even debate. Like, yes, their ideas can be blown apart, but it's kind of like they're running unopposed because everybody on the left, instead of debating, maybe the people on the left can't debate them, right? Because maybe who we're dealing with intellectually is they're all Marxists or whatever. But it seems like what is lacking is a movement of rational individuals who are libertarians, who are willing to step forward. I know that there are a few ANCAPs, but they are so hampered by this left-right paradigm that they're like, I don't want to defend the left. I feel like if I debate these anarcho-fascists that I'm defending the left. What do you say to this? Are you defending the left when you talk about right authoritarianism? Are you defending the left, Jeffrey Tucker?
That's the accusation, right? I mean, one of the weirdest things to me is that once I started writing about this topic, and the big break for me, I guess, is 2014 when I wrote an article called Against Libertarian Brutalism. But then it really got bad after I wrote something like 5 differences between the alt-right and libertarianism. Mm-hmm. So that, the alt-right trolls me very hard. But a lot of people say that, Tucker's become a leftist. Which, that accusation doesn't even penetrate me at all because it's like, in what world could that even possibly be true? But these people really consider you're either left or right and there's no other option. I wonder sometimes though, Ben, I mean, I think from my own point of view, like, have I been willing to take on these guys like directly in debate forums? And the answer really is no. I've not. I've written a ton about them, and I spar with them a little bit online, but I've never really gone toe-to-toe with...
Well, except Richard Spencer in the hotel lobby, which people should go and check out the YouTube video because it's epic.
He was just trolling that conference, and I mean, frankly, made me mad, right? I mean, I was like, get out of here.
Clearly.
Your stupid crap. I mean, here's the thing about these people, and you said that, like, why are they hanging around libertarian circles? But you consider what they did to Pepe the Frog, right? Mm-hmm. So Pepe, was like this sweet frog. It was invented by a guy, and everybody loved Pepe. And they somehow like trolled Pepe really hard, and then he became a meme for them. And that initial success really led them into a kind of a troll-like behavior. So they specialize in this stuff, mm-hmm. So I think what happened to us. Look, I'm not sure about this, but it fits with all the facts I know. I think what happened was that there's this rise of this alt-right based on anger towards the left. They thought, well, let's fire with fire. Mm-hmm. So and then they thought, well, who is naive enough and stupid enough to listen to this bullshit we're spouting? And libertarians, we're always so sweet, right? We're sweet, we're like, oh, yeah, everybody should come in. And they trolled us, and they started showing up to our meetings and started hanging around. And because we're a little bit unsophisticated as regards the danger of the right, because we've all been obsessing for so long about the left, we just had the door open to them. And it's a problem. I mean, they took over the anarcho-capitalist subreddit, and you find them everywhere in the libertarian world now. I think we're a little more sophisticated than we were a couple of years, maybe a year ago or something like that. But yeah, they've trolled us really hard, and it's a problem. I just got back from Freedom Fest, right? And I mean, yeah, I was on the stage with one of these dudes. I've gotten to play. I can really smell them. I don't fear them so much, but I can tell there's a genuine difference between the alt-right and libertarians. By the way, a lot of these guys that are sort of practicing this right Hegelianism, I think is the technical term. The common term is fascism, right? They don't even know so much that they're doing it. I mean, they're kind of entering into a tradition of thought. They're like the tools of
the useful idiots. They're useful idiots.
Yeah, I mean, they're useful idiots of some dead, weird fascist thinker from the 1930s, but they're so ignorant of intellectual history that they imagine themselves to be innovators or creators or just bad boys, Well,
what is that? What the attraction is then, Jeffrey? What is the attraction? Because I'm seeing young, relatively articulate, relatively educated, middle and upper middle class, white, but not just white, right? Men.
Especially not just white. Actually, it's really interesting to me the number of Hispanics and blacks who are involved in the alt-right movement.
So that's what I'm saying. Where the hell does that come from?
And Jews too, which is, Look, I mean, this is an interesting psychological topic. Wow, that's a big topic, and I have my own views on this because I've spent some time with these people. But yeah, so I'm not even sure I'm willing to say. But there's confusion about the reality of this ideology, which is inseparable from white supremacy.
Right.
It just is, and a lot of these people don't want to face that truth. And what I mean by white supremacy is not just an attitude like, I'm white and I'm awesome. Okay, that's not what I mean, which is a weird view anyway. But that's not ever what it's limited to. There is a huge history in this country and around the world of an exterminationist, eugenic ideology that extends out of an upper class white snobbery that really wants to prevent race mixing, any kind of, and especially it is a biological fear, essentially.
Of course.
We've got to exclude, segregate, and even exterminate everybody who's not just like me, since I'm a normative human being and you're basically an alien and a stranger and a threat to my gene pool. All right. So I know when I say those kind of things, like there's probably some viewer listening, rolling his eyes going, well, that just sounds like crazy paranoia. It's not.
It's happened.
Right?
It's really happened in the West.
It's the real history. And in fact, and again, I'm going to step on a limb, and nobody's going to believe me, but I'm telling you, this is the foundational ideology of Leviathan as it came to be realized in the progressive era at the turn of the 20th century. I mean, something weird happened to us as a civilization between about 1890 and 1920, all right? That's not that many years. Why do we go from relative laissez-faire, no passports, no income tax, no labor legislation, no marriage laws? We're getting freer and freer. And then by 1920, there's been mass slaughter through a world war. There's passports, there's income taxes. You can't even move or breathe.
So what's the reason?
The reason was demographic. Okay, here's the reason.
Okay.
And this is like 20 years of study. Finally, it takes a long time to discover these things. The reason was fear of progress, that this progress would lead to such demographic upheaval that my people would be threatened with extinction, so I better exterminate before they exterminate me. I mean, that's the essence of eugenic ideology. It was held by all the upper classes. You find it in all the journals and all levels of government. Everybody believed this. Like, we don't really believe this stuff anymore, but it's hard even to miss. Once you open your eyes to this stuff, you can't even read practically anything written between about the 1890s and about 1935 without seeing the universal endorsement of eugenic ideology. And it was practiced at every level. I mean, that's the reason for marriage licenses. It's the reason for labor laws and labor restrictions, minimum wages, segregation, zoning laws, you name it. It's always like fear of the other. That's and so in other words, I mean, here's the deal. In the Western world, right Hegelianism, leading to a kind of an exterminationist eugenic ideology has done at least, if not more, damage to our liberties as left Hegelianism ever has.
So let me, because that's a great context of putting this in, because what I start to see when you say that, what I start to see the now super established, we've got people hogging us. The super established left is almost playing the same game, but in reaction, right? So it's like, okay, here you have this. We're saying there's all this one group. Let's say this is white, waspy, elite upper class, or even to the middle class. And they're saying all of these disparate groups, you are the other, you should be eliminated. Now what I'm seeing is that those groups have found a way to combine together, and now they're looking at the initial group and saying, you should be eliminated. Because it's not like I'm not seeing Marxists and Antifa people on the left who are saying that white heterosexual males should be eliminated. I'm a black and Latino man, and I find that horrifying. Horrifying that someone would say that white straight men should be eliminated. That sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, this is leftist ideology, and all it ends up doing is provoking the other side. I mean, and I want to be sympathetic and see the world from their point of view. But the problem with both these sides is they don't understand liberalism. They don't believe in the possibility of human community. Which, I mean, it's like, what? I get so frustrated with this because I live in Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm.
You live in Vegas, right? But
Yep.
Atlanta. I mean, we've been through a lot of hard times in Atlanta
Sure.
for like the last 150 years. But I can go down the street in Atlanta and go to, and this is why the city inspires me so much. I can go into a Thai restaurant that's mostly populated by, middle upper class, African American Atlantans that are enormously prosperous, and mixing with whites and Hispanics, and in these commercial spaces. I mean, what you see and experience is a beautiful, glorious, inspiring harmony where everyone in that space finds value in each other. I mean, to me, something like that scene, which is available everywhere in Atlanta, refutes all these ideologies of leftism and rightism. Just reality around you if you live in a place like Atlanta. I mean, so every day I see refutations of this. Like, you know what? You leave people alone, let them keep their stuff, and give them an environment to trade and exchange with each other so we can discover that each other are actually dignified, valuable human beings, aspirational, we can all win together. Then all this ideology just goes away. And everybody smiles. Everybody's trying to live a better life. And we all, at some level, love each other. And to me that's a beautiful scene, and it just cuts through and destroys all these fanatic ideologies that are out there. I just wish people would experience that and like learn a lesson. And what I get from scenes like that is the more freedom we have, the more we get along with each other, and the better our lives are, and the better everybody else is. I mean, to me, that's the essence of what you and I are fighting for. That's it. Like, we can't get people to heaven. We can't make people morally pure. We can't make people make all the right choices in life. But we can create an environment in which people have an opportunity to live the fullest, best life that they themselves can choose to live. And to me, it's like that's our role as libertarians. To fight for that world, to a world of universal human dignity. And as far as I'm concerned, all these ideologies you see in these Twitter wars and these the great battle between Trump and Sanders or whatever, it's all a distraction. It's all a distraction from that core truth.
And it seems that you have to distract people. I mean, it is very interesting. It's something that we last week talked about with Eric Voorhees, and then this week in our initial stories, and we will talk. And I want to talk right now because this I think goes into cryptocurrency, and I know that you're huge on the blockchain. I think it's the most important invention for freedom probably in the last 500 years. But what I want to talk about is this idea, as you brought up, of leaving people alone. That what I hear from statists, the biggest argument or the biggest fear, I think the biggest reason why they put their fingers in their ears when a libertarian starts to talk is this idea of, if we leave people alone, people will be at each other's throats, they're going to be killing each other, they're going to be thieving, they're going to be stealing. Obviously, reality, when you look around, it isn't like that. But what do we, and now the blockchain is bringing that into reality where people are going, it's just going to have to happen because there's not going to be central regulation. But I want you to, if you could, because I know that this is something you talk about, something that you write about, how can we as libertarians start to communicate? What is it that we're missing? What is the scenario? What can we tell people to make them see in front of them people are not these horrible things that you think people are?
No, I think the most important thing that libertarians can do is realize that hatred of evil is not enough. Like, we really have to present to people a vision of the good, of the beautiful. And I don't think we've done enough of that. I think we should be a real champions of harmony and human dignity and human flourishing without apology and without insecurity, right?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things we hate, and a lot of times libertarianism is born out of, there's a lot of things that suck in the world, I get that, right? There's police abuse, there's a Federal Reserve, there's war and everything. But you imbibe that enough, and you begin to believe libertarianism is a purely negative ideology. We're just against everything. That's not really true. These things are evil because they're blocking what we really love, which is human rights, human dignity, and human flourishing, and the good life, a harmonious life, the universal brotherhood of man. And I want us to start talking this way. I mean, this is the way I try to talk. I think this is the best thing we can possibly do to market ideology. When you talk about blockchain, I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, you've been involved in the sector, for a long time, kind of an early adopter. The funny thing about those of us in the blockchain space is, like, I'm sure I'm speaking for you too, we learn more every day.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Like, why this is workable, why this is a good thing. When I first discovered it, I mean, it seemed like all technology. The funny thing is that, like, here we are, like, I'm about 4.5 years into my awareness of all this stuff. And now I realize, yeah, it is technology, it is great, at least a lot of cool gizmos and funny platforms and that sort of thing. But really, the essence of blockchain is that it meets a universal human need. I mean, if you could have gone to the cavemen or something and said, here's the blockchain, they would have found uses for it.
Right.
I mean, so people get confused. They think it's, I don't know, I've got dollars, I've got a credit card, why do I need your weird currencies thing? It's like, well, actually, this isn't just about gizmos. It's not about living like Elroy Jetson. This is really about clarifying ownership claims and enabling a more peaceful existence among your fellow men. I mean, that's really what blockchain is all about. It's taken me like 4 years to figure this out, but I mean, that's the essence of it.
I mean, it is. I think that is, and I mean, I've been talking about my new book, which is Self-Ownership, which is, I do believe that ownership, which I'll send you a copy for sure immediately, but I do believe that this is the most important concept in libertarianism right now, is ownership claims. Like, understanding this is where all the conflict in the world has ever come from, for even before we were human beings. We as libertarians, I know property rights sounds to people it sounds so boring and just like, but it is. Can you help people to understand why property rights and peace and freedom are connected to one another, especially to those people who are like, there's no such thing as property and blah, blah, blah. Can you help people to understand that a little better?
I will give like the shortest version, but you just imagine 150,000 years ago, there's a world of plenty, berries on the trees, slow-moving turtles, you can eat their eggs, and everybody's happy, right? But the happiness leads to a larger population, and guess what? There's a tragedy of the commons and things run out. Now you got a problem. You got to get enough to eat. So in order to eat, you invent a technology which is called private property. You figure out, oh, look, here's my yard. I'm going to get this goat. I'm going to breed goats. I need people to leave me alone. First, I'll try to guard it, but then I'm going to try to get people to agree with me. So you go to the neighbor and say, well, how about you grow some grapes, and I'll trade some goats for grapes for you, and then I'll respect your rights, you respect my rights. There's an agreement, and this begins to unfold gradually.
Yes. And
so that's where you get private property fund. It's essential in a world where there's rivalrous claims to the same good. You've got to figure out a system of titling things and figure out what's yours and what's mine, so that we can engage each other to mutual benefit. That's the origin of private property. It's not any more complicated than that. It's a technology designed to solve a human problem. But that's only the first step. The second step is that you have to document somehow your claims. Because it's not just about who you trade with. You want everybody else to agree that this is yours and this is his and you need some authoritative record. So from the beginning of history, you see this, right? You find stone tablets where people are writing down registrations of property records, and then you find clay tablets, and then much later you find papyrus. These are all attempts to document these claims, because the documentation tends to compel a certain agreement in the community. And if it's not documented, then nobody knows anything about your ownership claims. And then later with parchment, which is an awesome innovation, is basically lambskin. But it was a little rough for keeping complex financial transactions. So by the time the Medicis come along, with the first really big banking family in Europe, they were started, sawing down that parchment and making it really, really smooth and beautiful so they could write ledgers. And that's where the Medicis kept their books, and we still have them today because these are really immutable records. And then you have to, let's go forward to the printing press. Made it a lot easier with paper and printing. But let's bump forward 500 years, and now suddenly you've got databases. And databases were also awesome. They made an ever more perfect way of documenting our respective claims to each other over property. But the problem with those is that they're always centralized. And in fact, that's always been the problem in every attempt, from stones all the way to databases in the 1970s, 80s, is that there was somebody you had to trust in charge of keeping the ledger. So suddenly, in 2008, we saw the first glimpses of the possibility of taking this property rights registration record, this ledger, which is essential for peace, essential for human flourishing and trade, and putting it in the cloud so that everybody could see it simultaneously and everybody could agree. So now you've reduced dramatically the possibility of fraud, of lying, of backdating, and all the kind of crap that people have done since the beginning of time. So that's why it's such an important technology, just as a ledger. So the blockchain went one more step. It's like, well, how do you change the ledger? Well, now you have to provide proof of work, and you have to provide evidence of your authorization to make some change in this, and it has to be confirmed by the community.
Yes.
And it turns out the means by which you do this is a token, and that token itself becomes a valuable commodity, which now we're calling money. But that's the way it works, right? That's the sequence. So I just gave a short history of property rights and ledgers from the Stone Age up until like this year.
But this is something that economics is not being, this is such a huge piece of economics. This is not being taught. We have young people running around who seem like they would be, or think that they might be happy in a world without private property, not knowing how hard human beings have worked on this technology since the very beginning, how crucial it's been. What do we do to help these young people? We can't just hand them economics textbooks. What can we start doing to change this trend? Because I do think that it is really, really dangerous, especially as, a lot of these people are adults, a lot of them are getting educations, and a lot of them are going to go off and be in the world, and they're just operating under a fantasy. What can we do?
You see, I think what you just said is very insightful. Most of the people who believe in socialism are intellectuals, and pastors, sort of the upper crust of the ideology industry. They're not the workers and peasants, right?
No, never. No.
It's always the extremely well educated.
But they're speaking for the workers. They can speak for the workers, even though they've never worked a day in their life.
Right? They don't know. Right? It's very dangerous. This has always been true, right? So. Hayek said this, that socialism really emanated from the intellectuals, not the masses. But here's the thing: intellectuals work in the realm of ideas, so they this is their playground. And it's true that in ideas you can have socialism. In the sense that, like I've said a lot of things, anybody who's heard me can take my stuff. It's not going to take it from me. We have infinite reproducibility in the realm of ideas. And pastors, right? They think they're spreading salvation. Well, there's an infinite availability of salvation units, and they can just spread them around like whatever, right? No additional units of salvation are going to distract from any existing units of salvation. So all these people think that the rest of the world should operate this way. This is just a true intellectual mistake. They want the whole world to act like the world of ideas or the world of religion. But the fact is, in the physical world, there is rivalrous claims, and you can't just socialize that tree or your tennis shoes or your shirt or your contact lenses. That's stupid, right? Socialism doesn't work for any physical good that's limited in quantity. It's not instantaneously reproducible. People thought Jesus was God because he turned loaves and fishes into infinite distribution, right? Not everybody can do that. It's a really cool Jedi trick, or something. So this is their mistake. Ultimately it's an intellectual error that they don't understand the difference between scarce and non-scarce goods. And if we could get that straight, it would clarify 90% of the ideological problems that exist among this group.
Awesome. I think we are. Yeah, we're coming up. But this went really, really fast. I would love to keep you on for like another hour, but we'll have to do that in the future. Probably next time I see you in person, I'll buy you. Yeah, I'll buy you a drink, and we could carry on for a few hours. I really appreciate you being on the show today. Obviously, fee.org. People can go to check you out. Is there anything that you would like to talk about? Anything that's coming up that you're excited about that people should be paying attention to?
Well, I've got a new book coming out actually called Right-Wing Collectivism that's going to be going through all these guys.
Nice.
You know, so I think that could be actually helpful to you. It's not that the right-wing collectivists are the only threat, but they are a threat. So I'm still working on that. I think it's going to be out before the end of the year. But I appreciate anybody going and supporting FEE. I'm proud to work here because this organization has been around since 1946. So we've got a long history of, I would say, defense of human rights with dignity and rigor. It's a big responsibility, I feel, being the director of content here, and I probably screw it up every single day. But
I don't think so.
I'm doing my best, right? So listen, I really appreciate you having me on and letting me go on about all this stuff.
Oh man, anytime. I think that everybody's appreciated you being on, and I think, as I say, that we could go on forever, but the stream is going to cut. So, Jeffrey Tucker, thank you very much for being on. I'm sure that I will see you somewhere soon, and we'll have to have you back on the show soon.
Okay, I'd like that very much.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
My friend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, always awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Always awesome, man. Very interested in that book. Mm-hmm. I think that collectivism versus individualism, it's what we need to be. Look, I've said it since the beginning of the show, right? Like, this is the hugest issue, and it's like, if you are for rights, period, especially those people who are like, yeah, I support minority rights. It's like the individual is the smallest minority. Mm-hmm. We are all part of that minority group, the individual. And for us to start looking at each other as we look at ourselves is very, very, very important. And, no one breaks it down more on a literal daily basis than Jeffrey Tucker. I suggest everybody go follow him for sure. Jeffrey A. Tucker, I think on just about everything. But he's got, there's articles every day, and if not by him, then from the other great people at the Foundation for Economic Education. So, awesome. With that, talking about libertarianism, we do have one more story, and I did want to cover that. So let's take a look at this, at the second news story, news number 2. So we got fans in here, and it's blowing. I think a little piece of dust just flew into my eye. So we are talking about, we've talked about self-ownership. We've talked about private property. On this show, as we've talked about the legalization / decriminalization of marijuana, I have said that this is not about marijuana. This is not about drugs. This is about private property. This is about, can you sell what you own? As we talked about in the earlier story about Alpha Bay. And it's about all plants. That being able to grow plants that then you own because you labored and you grew them, and then you are able to dispose of as you want to be able to sell. First of its kind, food sovereignty law. This is from the Free Thought Project. Show this law, Maine. First of its kind, food sovereignty law just legalized local food trade without government. Maine has taken a bold step toward freedom, becoming the first state in the U.S. to enact a food sovereignty law, giving communities power to regulate their local food economy. The bill, entitled An Act to Recognize Local Control Regarding Food and Water Systems, was passed unanimously by the state Senate and signed into law by Governor Paul LePage. LePage signed LD 275, an act to recognize local control regarding food systems, Friday, legitimizing the authority of towns and communities to enact ordinances regulating local food distribution free from state regulatory control. Supporters of food sovereignty want local food producers to be exempt from state licensing and inspections governing the selling of food, as long as the transactions are between producers and the customers for home consumption, or when the food is sold and consumed at community events such as church suppers. What this means is that neighbors can sell their eggs, milk, and other wholesome food to neighbors without fear of state-level interference. This includes raw milk sales, a particular area where government has cracked down on those who dare engage in voluntary exchange. Maine's move is very welcome at a time when freedom is generally being chipped away by the police, surveillance state, and the corporatocracy. Long-standing alliances between corporate food giants and government agencies have come to exert vast control over what we put in our bodies. So Christian does not completely eliminate and create a free market, says that communities, municipalities, local governments can pass ordinances on food. Now, hopefully most of them just don't, right? Hopefully most of them just let it go. And then maybe you have some free cities, right? Like, that's a great experiment. That's kind of what we talked about with Michael Bolden, right? This idea of different jurisdictions. So maybe some will regulate it, some won't. People who want to do this will go to the unregulated jurisdiction, and then they'll be able to sell the food free from state control. I think a lot of this is already happening at farmers markets. It's interesting that they would make it explicit. So we're going to see how it goes in Maine.
Interesting.
Right? We obviously don't want regulation of any form. Especially for food. You know, when people ask me how I think this thing is going to start, because I think that what we're experiencing right now in this realm is we're still just at the birth of this, both from an ideological standpoint, right? Because as you see, those of us who are thinking about this, writing about this, it's a renaissance. People are having to dig back into history, come forward, bring forth new ideas. People are experimenting with new things. In the realm of cryptocurrency, which is definitely going to be what powers this whole new culture, from an economic standpoint, right? It's going to be the most popular good, as Eric Voorhees said. It's going to be the most popular good in the economy. It's going to power the economy. We're still in a phase of these networks being built themselves. Like, people are speculating, which is great. They're building the networks. We're not yet at a point where it is the true economy. And there are setbacks, like the things that have happened with Swarm City. That's a setback, but it's not. You can't stop the momentum. The train is moving forward, right? So, in that regard, what I think is going to be important is for us to be willing to experiment in the other realms, because people have, I know crypto savagery is slowly getting picked up, and I'm seeing people using the term, and I think a lot of people think that it just has to do with cryptocurrency. No, this is crypto savagery too. People ask me, how do I think this is going to start? And it's one of the reasons why we've had Jack Spirko and Curtis Stone and the guys from Aquaponics Source on is because I do think that food is the place where this starts. Food is the place where any economy starts. It is the place where any economy starts. You figure, we're here in Las Vegas, in the Wild West, when they would throw up a town. Like the general store where you could go and get some food, and the saloon, those are like the first. Always. You got to have a place to be able to go and get food, otherwise nobody can live in that area. So food is the primary, and I do think that the exchange of food for cryptocurrency is going to be massive. It's going to be huge. And especially when you have the I use the term Uber, but the super centralization that's going to happen, for instance, when Amazon really rolls out what they're going to do with Whole Foods.
Oh, shit.
Which we're going to follow that, because now there's talk about actually putting them up on antitrust, having antitrust hearings about that, calling them a monopoly because they took over Whole Foods. Very strange. Very strange. But look, organic food grown by crypto savages, sold with cryptocurrency, that's the beginning of an economy, man. That's the beginning of an economy. So we're close, we're close. We're probably, this is probably a 50-year project, really. And we're at the beginning of it, at the forefront. But what an exciting time.
It's crazy.
What an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah, seriously.
And the crazy part, and this is why I say crypto savagery, is here we are. We're sitting because we know this under culture that's happening. We see it because we're paying attention. We know it exists, and we think it's an exciting time. And then those other people on the left and right are out there, they're scared to death. They see their system falling apart.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. They're scared to death because they don't realize every end is a new beginning.
Yep.
You know, Rome fell, but hey, that was a good thing to the fucking Visigoths and the Huns and the, you know what I mean? That was a good thing for all those people. Their kingdoms took off. So, I mean, it was a good thing for the Muslims as well. You know, they were able to take over broad swaths of land. The Caliphate was able to take over broad swaths of land because the Byzantines had shrunk back into Constantinople. So there's always something ready to take that place, and it's contributing to it falling apart. So it's an amazing time to be alive, bro.
Seriously.
Amazing time.
Seriously. Even, I mean, look at how much has advanced since we started the show. It's crazy.
Since we started the show, dude, and we're not even a year in.
Right. It's crazy.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's the timing's right. I'm looking forward to the next year for sure. It's going to be very, very interesting. So I think, we're coming right up on it. Why don't you throw up one more time? If you want to go, if you're watching the show, you want to go get my new book before anybody else can get it. This is just an offer that I'm making on the show and maybe in a few tweets, vinarmani.com/self-ownership. You can go and get the book. Christian already got his copy. He's like the first to get it. And so I hope you enjoy that. Let me know what you think about it, dude.
Absolutely.
Let me know what you think. All right. I think we're good to go. Let me say goodbye to the people here. Thanks for tuning in. I really want to thank my guest, Jeffrey Tucker of FEE, the Foundation for Economic Education. They're at fee.org. Please go and check them out. Follow him at Jeffrey A. Tucker on Twitter. You will not regret it. Great reading material every single day. Some of the funniest and most insightful stuff that I have read in the libertarian movement. If you want to check out the archive of the show, you can do that at youtube.com/VinArmani. Actually, go to vinarmani.com. They're all there and they're searchable. Every single archive and also the little sections of the best of all broken up, which are available on youtube.com/activistpost. If you want to just listen as a podcast, you want to subscribe, you can do that on iTunes and Stitcher. You could actually just go to vinarmani.com/iTunes or vinarmani.com/Stitcher, and that'll take you right to the appropriate page. And while you're at that, we're going to take off, but we will be back next Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And until then, stay free.